Captain Zyxthera of the Galactic Confederation vessel Stellar Wanderer stared at the diagnostic panel with growing frustration. Red warning lights blinked across 3 different systems, and the ship's AI kept announcing maintenance requirements in that annoyingly cheerful tone that made her want to throw something at the nearest bulkhead. Captain, her chief engineer, Blektar, approached with his forearms gesturing wildly in what humans might have recognized as exasperation.
The quantum drive needs immediate attention. We're running on backup power for life support, and our weapon systems are completely offline. Zyxthera's species, the Valkyrie, were known throughout the galaxy for their methodical approach to everything. They planned missions decades in advance, built ships to last centuries, and maintained strict schedules that other species found impossibly rigid. The idea of their flagship vessel breaking down in the middle of nowhere was not just inconvenient, it was embarrassing. "What are our options?" she asked, her crystalline skin shifting from its usual pale blue to a worried purple. Blektar consulted his datapad, all 4 of his hands working the controls simultaneously. "The nearest Confederation maintenance facility is 6 weeks away at our current reduced speed. However..." He paused, his expression becoming uncertain. "However, what?" "There's a Class 12 world only 3 days from our position. Sol 3, also known as Earth. It's the homeworld of the humans." The bridge fell silent except for the persistent beeping of warning alarms. Every crew member present turned to look at their captain. Earth was well known throughout the galaxy, but not for reasons that inspired confidence in their maintenance capabilities. "The Death World?" asked Navigator Quintel, her voice barely above a whisper.
"Captain, surely you're not considering they're a developing species," Blektar continued quickly. "Barely achieved faster than light travel 50 years ago. But they do have some industrial capabilities, and they've been surprisingly adaptive in their interactions with other species." Zyxthera had heard the stories, of course.
Everyone had.
Humans were from a planet so hostile that most galactic species considered it uninhabitable. They had evolved in an environment that would kill a Valkyrie within hours, extreme temperature variations, toxic atmospheric compounds, gravitational forces that would crush smaller species, and radiation levels that required constant protection.
More disturbing were the reports about human behavior.
They formed emotional attachments to almost anything, including their mechanical devices. They had a tendency to modify and improve equipment in ways that horrified safety inspectors but somehow worked better than the original designs. And they had an unsettling habit of solving complex problems through methods that made no logical sense but produced remarkable results.
"What kind of maintenance capabilities do they actually have?" Zyxthera asked. Blektar's expression became even more uncertain.
"According to galactic records, they have basic metallurgy, some advanced computing systems, and, well, they seem to enjoy taking things apart and putting them back together differently."
"That's not reassuring." "No, Captain, it's not.
But they do have one thing going for them: they're extremely eager to help. Almost aggressively helpful, according to some reports." The captain weighed her options. 6 weeks limping to a proper facility with failing life support, or 3 days to a world inhabited by creatures who might accidentally improve their ship into something unrecognizable.
Neither option seemed particularly appealing.
"There's something else," Blektar added quietly.
"I've been monitoring human communication networks during our approach. They seem to know we're coming."
"How is that possible?"
"We haven't sent any distress signals."
"Unknown, Captain. But there are multiple transmissions being sent from their planet to what appear to be orbital facilities. The content is encrypted, but the volume of traffic suggests significant activity." Zyxthera made her decision with the kind of calculated risk assessment that had made her one of the youngest captains in the Confederation fleet.
"Set course for Earth. Send them a standard maintenance request." "And, Blektar?"
"Yes, Captain? Make sure our cultural protocols are up to date.
If we're going to deal with humans, we need to understand what we're getting into."
The journey to Earth took exactly 3 days and 7 hours, during which time the ship's condition continued to deteriorate. By the time they reached the outer edge of the Sol system, the Stellar Wanderer was running on emergency power and the crew was beginning to show signs of stress from the increasingly unreliable life support.
"Captain," Communications Officer Trelvanna announced, "we're receiving a response to our maintenance request." On screen,
the main viewer flickered to life, showing the face of a human male. He appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with graying hair and what humans called a beard. His expression was friendly but professional, and, when he spoke, his voice carried an accent that the universal translator struggled to process properly.
Greetings, Stellar Wanderer. This is Admiral Marcus Chen of Earth Orbital Command. We've received your maintenance request and are prepared to assist. However, I should warn you that our facilities might not be exactly what you're expecting.
ZYX stepped forward.
Admiral Chen, I am Captain ZYX of the Valkyrie Confederation. We appreciate your willingness to help.
Our ship requires urgent repairs to quantum drive systems, life support, and weapons arrays. The human's expression became more animated, and ZYX noticed what appeared to be excitement in his eyes.
Captain, we'd be honored to help. I'm transmitting approach vectors to our primary orbital facility.
Fair warning, we've made some modifications to standard galactic maintenance protocols.
You might find our methods unconventional. Unconventional how? Admiral Chen's smile grew wider.
Well, let's just say we like to make improvements while we work. Your ship might leave here better than when it arrived. We've also prepared some hospitality arrangements, figured you and your crew might enjoy experiencing Earth culture while we work. The connection ended, and the bridge crew exchanged worried glances. ZYX was beginning to suspect that their simple maintenance stop was about to become something much more complicated.
As they approached Earth's orbital space, the crew gathered at the observation ports to stare in amazement.
The planet was surrounded by far more artificial structures than their databases had indicated. Massive orbital platforms, mining facilities, and what appeared to be construction yards filled the space around the blue and white world.
Captain, Blektar said, his voice filled with confusion, these installations, they're not in any of our records.
Some of these structures appear to be military in nature.
Military? ZYX moved to get a better view.
What she saw made her crystalline skin shift to a pale yellow, the color of surprise among her people. Sleek warships moved between the orbital platforms, ships that looked nothing like the crude vessels Earth was supposed to possess. These were elegant, deadly-looking craft that incorporated design elements she'd never seen before.
Navigator, are we certain we're at the correct coordinates?
Positive, Captain.
This is Earth, Sol 3.
But, the orbital infrastructure is far more advanced than our databases indicated. A new voice came over the communications system, younger and more casual than Admiral Chen's. Stellar Wanderer this is Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez at Orbital Platform 7.
We've got a maintenance bay prepared for you. Follow the navigation beacon and we'll guide you in.
As their ship was drawn into the massive docking facility, the crew watched in fascination as human workers moved around their vessel. These weren't the primitive tool users they'd expected. The humans wore sophisticated environmental suits and operated equipment that looked more advanced than what the Confederation typically used.
Captain, Trelvana said quietly, I'm detecting some unusual energy signatures from the human equipment. The technology appears to be.
Appears to be what?
Well, it's definitely not primitive.
Some of these readings suggest power output levels that exceed our own systems. The docking procedure completed with remarkable efficiency. As the ship's systems powered down for maintenance, ZYX found herself wondering what exactly they'd gotten themselves into. A cheerful chime indicated someone was requesting permission to board. The airlock cycled, and Admiral Chen stepped aboard, accompanied by a woman in a maintenance supervisor's uniform and a third human carrying what appeared to be a large container. Welcome aboard, Captain, Admiral Chen said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. This is Chief Engineer Maria Santos, who'll be overseeing your repairs. And this is Petty Officer Jackson with some coffee and refreshments.
Coffee?
ZYX had heard of the human beverage but had never encountered it personally. Earth's greatest contribution to galactic civilization, Admiral Chen said with obvious pride.
We figured you and your crew might be tired after your journey. Maria, why don't you explain what we're planning for the ship? Chief Engineer Santos stepped forward, consulting a tablet computer.
Captain, we've already run preliminary scans on your vessel. Beautiful ship, by the way, Valkyrie engineering is legendary. We can definitely handle your maintenance requirements, but we'd like to make a few suggestions for improvements.
What kind of improvements?
Blektar asked suspiciously.
Santos's expression became animated, much like Admiral Chen's had earlier.
Well, your quantum drive is solid but inefficient. We can boost its output by about 30% with some modifications to the field generators. Your weapon systems are reliable but outdated. We can upgrade the targeting computers and improve your energy efficiency. And your life support. She paused, grinning. Let's just say we can make it a lot more comfortable. These modifications, ZYX said carefully, would they comply with Confederation safety standards? Oh, absolutely. Better than standard, actually. We tend to over-engineer things here on Earth. Occupational hazard of living on a world that's constantly trying to kill us. Petty Officer Jackson had been quietly setting up what appeared to be a portable beverage station. Coffee's ready if anyone wants to try it, he announced. Fair warning, it's a bit strong by galactic standards. ZYX found herself curious despite her reservations. She accepted a small cup of the dark liquid and took a tentative sip. The effect was immediate and unexpected, a surge of energy and alertness that made her crystalline skin shift to a bright, pleased blue. This is remarkable, she said, taking another sip. What exactly is this substance? Caffeine, mostly, Jackson explained. Mild stimulant. Humans have been using it for thousands of years. It's completely safe for most galactic species, we checked. Around the room, other crew members were trying the coffee with similar reactions. Blektar's forearms were moving in patterns that indicated extreme satisfaction, while Navigator Quintel was examining the beverage as if it were some kind of miracle substance. Chief Santos, ZYX said, feeling more alert than she had in days, how long would these improvements take? Standard maintenance plus upgrades? About a week. Maybe 10 days if we really want to do things right. We'll need to fabricate some custom components, but that's no problem, our manufacturing facilities are pretty comprehensive. Admiral Chan leaned against the bulkhead with obvious satisfaction. While your ship's being worked on, we'd love to show you around Earth. Most galactic visitors never get to see the surface, they think it's too dangerous. But I think you'll find it's not as bad as the reputation suggests. Surface visit? Quintel looked terrified. Admiral, with respect, our species requires very specific environmental conditions. Already taken care of, Admiral Chen said confidently. We've prepared accommodation facilities that will keep you comfortable and safe. Plus, there are some things down there I think you'll find interesting. Earth's not just a death world, it's also the most diverse planet in known space. ZYX found herself intrigued despite her better judgment. The coffee was helping her think more clearly, and these humans seemed surprisingly competent. What would this surface visit involve? Well, Admiral Chen said, his smile becoming even wider, we thought we'd start with a tour of our primary shipyards. Then, maybe show you some of our research facilities. And, we've arranged a cultural exchange program. Some of our people are very interested in learning about Valkyrie civilization. The captain looked around at her crew, all of whom were showing various signs of interest and alertness from the coffee. The maintenance would take at least a week anyway, and their interaction with humans so far had been surprisingly positive. Very well, she said finally. We accept your hospitality. But, I must insist on daily updates regarding our ship's progress. Absolutely, Chief Santos said. In fact, we'll give you full access to our work areas. You can observe everything we do. Transparency is important to us. As the humans prepared to leave, Admiral Chen turned back at the airlock. Captain, there's one more thing. While you're here, we're hoping you might be willing to share some information about Confederation technology and protocols. Not anything classified, of course, just general knowledge. We're always eager to learn. After they left, the bridge crew stood in silence for several minutes, still sipping their coffee and processing what had just happened. Captain, Blektar said finally, these humans are not what I expected. No, ZYX agreed, looking out the viewport at the bustling human orbital facility. They're not. The question is, what exactly are they? As if in answer to her question, one of the human warships glided past their window. It was sleek, elegant, and unmistakably powerful. More importantly, it was clearly built with technology that was supposed to be far beyond human capabilities. Whatever they'd stumbled into, ZYX realized, it was going to be much more interesting than a simple maintenance stop. The transport shuttle that carried Captain ZYX and her senior officers to Earth's surface was unlike anything they'd experienced before. Where galactic standard shuttles prioritized efficiency and basic comfort, this human craft seemed designed with an almost artistic sensibility. The hull was smooth and elegant, the interior spacious and filled with large windows that provided spectacular views during their descent. The atmospheric entry is remarkably smooth, observed Navigator Quintel, her fear gradually being replaced by curiosity. Our shuttles typically experience significant turbulence during transition. Lieutenant Rodriguez, their pilot, glanced back with obvious pride. We put a lot of work into perfecting atmospheric flight. When you live at the bottom of a gravity well, you learn to make the trip comfortable. As they descended through Earth's atmosphere, the alien crew pressed against the windows in fascination. The planet below them was a patchwork of greens and browns, with vast blue oceans that reflected the sun like polished metal. Cities spread across the landscape in organic patterns that seemed to grow naturally from the terrain rather than being imposed upon it. The population density appears much higher than our records indicated, Blektar noted, his forearms working controls on a scanning device. I'm detecting industrial activity far beyond what a developing world should possess.
Earth's been busy, Lieutenant Rodriguez said with what humans called a grin. We don't like standing still. Always building, always improving, always pushing to see what's possible. Their destination was revealed as they descended toward what appeared to be a massive coastal city.
But, as they got closer, it became clear that this wasn't just a city, it was an integrated complex of manufacturing facilities, research centers, and living areas that stretched for hundreds of kilometers along the shoreline. Welcome to New Geneva, Lieutenant Rodriguez announced as they approached a landing platform that jutted out into what the crew would later learn was called the Pacific Ocean. One of our primary industrial and research centers. It's where we develop most of our advanced technologies. The landing was so smooth that the aliens barely felt it. As they disembarked, they were met by Admiral Chen and a group of humans in what appeared to be formal dress uniforms. The air was warm and humid, with a salty scent that the ship's databases identified as characteristic of ocean environments.
Captain ZYX, Admiral Chen said, approaching with his hand extended once again, welcome to Earth.
I hope the journey down wasn't too uncomfortable.
Not at all, Admiral. Your transportation technology is quite impressive. Wait until you see what else we've been working on.
He gestured toward a series of sleek vehicles waiting nearby. We'll start with a tour of our shipyards, then move on to some of our research facilities.
I think you'll find it educational.
The vehicles were another surprise. They moved without any visible propulsion system, gliding silently over the ground at speeds that made the landscape blur past the windows. The ride was perfectly smooth, without the vibrations or noise that the aliens associated with ground transportation.
Magnetic levitation?
Blektar asked, leaning forward to examine the vehicle's interior.
Among other things, their human guide, Dr. Sarah Kim, replied. We've made some advances in anti-gravity technology that have practical applications for planetary transport. Navigator Quintel's eyes widened. Anti-gravity?
But that requires, the energy requirements alone should be
prohibitive, yes, Dr. Kim agreed. We found some creative solutions.
We'll show you some of the theoretical work later if you're interested. The shipyard they approached was visible from kilometers away, a massive complex of docks, construction bays, and manufacturing facilities that extended both into the ocean and up into the sky on vast platforms. Ships in various stages of construction filled the facility, but these weren't the primitive vessels the aliens had expected. Admiral ZYX said, staring at a partially completed vessel that dwarfed her own ship, that appears to be a battlecruiser.
The Determination, yes. She'll be ready for space trials next month.
We're quite proud of her. But Earth isn't supposed to have military vessels of that class. The Confederation records indicate that we're a developing world with limited technology, Admiral Chen finished.
Yes, we're aware of what your records say. We've found it useful to maintain that impression.
The tour continued through the construction facility, where human workers operated equipment that seemed to bend the laws of physics.
Metal components flowed like liquid before solidifying into perfect shapes.
Energy tools cut through materials with precision that exceeded galactic standards. Most disturbing of all, the workers seemed to be enjoying themselves. Your workforce appears unusually enthusiastic, Blektar observed, watching a team of humans who were laughing while installing what appeared to be a quantum drive array. Humans love to build things, Dr. Kim explained.
Especially when we're building something that's never been built before.
These crews have been working on revolutionary propulsion systems, and they're excited to see how they perform.
Revolutionary how? ZYX asked.
Dr. Kim's expression became animated in the way that the crew was beginning to recognize as typical human excitement. We've managed to improve efficiency of standard quantum drives by about 400% while reducing energy consumption by half. Plus, we've added some features that, well, you'll see when we upgrade your ship. The next stop was a research facility that looked more like a university campus than an industrial center. Buildings were connected by covered walkways that wound through gardens and parks where humans and various alien species worked together on outdoor projects. This is where we do our theoretical work, Admiral Chen explained as they entered a building that seemed to stretch impossibly high into the sky. Mostly physics and engineering, but we've got teams working on everything from xenobiology to temporal mechanics.
The laboratories they visited were unlike anything in the aliens' experience.
Human researchers worked alongside holographic displays that showed complex mathematical equations and three-dimensional models of impossible structures. In one lab, a team was testing what appeared to be a small artificial star contained in a magnetic field. In another, researchers were examining samples of materials that didn't appear to exist in normal space.
Dr. Martinez, Admiral Chen called to a woman who was supervising an experiment that involved folding spacetime in a visible manner. Could you show our guests the latest results from the dimensional research?
Dr. Martinez looked up from her work with enthusiasm.
Captain ZYX. We've been hoping to meet you. Valkyrie mathematical models have been incredibly helpful in our research.
She gestured toward the folded space experiment.
We're working on practical applications of nonlinear physics.
So far, we've managed to create stable micro-wormholes that can transmit information instantaneously across galactic distances.
Instantaneous communication? Navigator Quintel sounded stunned. But, the energy requirements, the mathematical complexity. It turns out the universe is more flexible than most people think, Dr. Martinez said cheerfully.
We've found that if you approach the problem from the right angle, a lot of supposedly impossible things become merely very difficult.
The tour continued through increasingly impossible facilities.
They saw laboratories where humans were growing custom materials at the molecular level. They visited workshops where engineers were building devices that seemed to violate fundamental laws of physics. Most remarkably, they met research teams that included members of species they didn't recognize, aliens who weren't part of the Confederation but who seemed perfectly comfortable working alongside humans. Admiral, ZYX said during a brief pause in their tour, I must ask directly.
What exactly is Earth's relationship with the Galactic Confederation? Admiral Chen's expression became more serious.
We're members, of course. We joined 50 years ago when we achieved faster-than-light travel. But we've found that the Confederation has some limitations in its approach to technological development.
What kind of limitations?
Well, for example, the Confederation tends to be very conservative about technological advancement. Safety protocols, standardization requirements, regulatory oversight, all necessary things, of course, but they can slow down innovation considerably.
Dr. Kim nodded in agreement. Humans have a tendency to push boundaries.
We like to experiment, to try new approaches, to see what's possible. Sometimes that conflicts with Confederation guidelines.
So we've developed something of a parallel research program, Admiral Chen continued.
Officially, we comply with all Confederation standards. Unofficially, we pursue research that goes beyond those standards. Other species have found this approach interesting.
Other species? You'll meet some of them at dinner tonight.
We've developed relationships with several civilizations that share our interest in pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Call it an informal alliance of curious minds. The final stop of their tour was a facility that left the alien crew speechless. It was a massive dome that contained what appeared to be a miniature galaxy, thousands of stars, planets, and other celestial objects orbiting in perfect harmony within the confined space. Pocket universe technology, Dr. Kim explained casually.
We use it for testing large-scale experiments without risking damage to real spacetime.
This particular universe contains about 10,000 star systems where we test everything from new propulsion systems to terraforming techniques. Blektar stared at the miniature galaxy with all four of his arms hanging limp at his sides.
You've created an entire universe for testing purposes? Well, a small one, Dr. Martinez said modestly. We're working on larger versions.
The eventual goal is to create fully stable universe-sized spaces for expansion and research. As they returned to the transport vehicles, the alien crew walked in stunned silence. Everything they thought they knew about human capabilities had been thoroughly shattered. These weren't primitive Deathworlders struggling to understand basic technology. These were beings who had apparently moved beyond the technological limitations that constrained the rest of the galaxy. Captain, Navigation Officer Quintel whispered, "What do we tell the Confederation about this?" ZYX considered the question carefully. The Confederation's databases were clearly obsolete. Earth possessed technology that exceeded anything in known space, commanded resources that dwarfed most galactic powers, and had established relationships with species that weren't even supposed to exist. "For now," she said quietly, "we say nothing until we understand more about what we've discovered." That evening, they were invited to what the humans called a casual dinner at Admiral Chen's residence. The building was located on a cliff overlooking the ocean, and the dining area was an open terrace that provided a spectacular view of the sunset over the water. The other guests were as surprising as everything else about Earth. There were representatives from species the aliens had never seen before, beings who introduced themselves as members of civilizations from distant galaxies that had somehow established contact with Earth. There were humans who held academic titles that didn't exist in any known university. Most intriguingly, there were individuals who seemed to represent organizations that had no official existence. "Captain ZYX, Admiral Chen said as they gathered around a table that had been set with foods from dozens of different worlds, "I'd like you to meet some friends of ours. This is Ambassador Kethral from the Andromeda Collective, Professor Williams from the Institute for Advanced Everything, and Commander Singh from the Earth Defense Initiative." The conversations that followed were unlike anything the alien crew had experienced. These beings discussed technology and physics as if the fundamental laws of the universe were merely suggestions to be worked around. They talked about exploration of distant galaxies as if it were a routine weekend activity. Most remarkably, they spoke about cooperation between species as if it were the most natural thing in the universe. The key insight, Professor Williams was explaining to Blektar, is that the universe is far more interconnected than most people realize. Once you understand the underlying patterns, travel between galaxies becomes no more difficult than travel between star systems. Ambassador Kethral, who appeared to be some kind of crystalline being that sparkled with internal light, turned to ZYX. "Captain, we've been following the Confederation's exploration efforts with great interest. Your people have a gift for systematic exploration that we admire greatly." "Thank you," ZYX replied, though she felt increasingly out of her depth. "May I ask how you became aware of our activities?" "Oh, the humans share all sorts of interesting information with their friends. They're remarkably generous with knowledge. It's one of their most appealing characteristics." Commander Singh, a human woman who appeared to be about the same age as Admiral Chen, leaned forward with obvious interest. "Captain, we've been hoping to establish more formal contact with the Confederation. There are some projects we're working on that could benefit from Valkyrie expertise." "What kind of projects?" "Well, we're planning an expedition to explore the spaces between galaxies. The Valkyrie reputation for careful planning and systematic exploration would be invaluable for that kind of mission." The conversation continued late into the evening, covering topics that ranged from theoretical physics to comparative xenobiology to something called practical universe engineering. By the time the dinner ended, the alien crew had been exposed to concepts and possibilities that challenged everything they thought they knew about the cosmos. As they were transported back to their accommodation facility, Navigator Quintel summed up what they were all thinking. "Captain, I believe we have significantly underestimated the humans." "Yes," ZYX agreed, watching the lights of the human city pass by outside their transport. "The question is, what are we going to do about it?" The accommodation facility provided for the alien crew was another demonstration of human ingenuity that bordered on the impossible. Each room was perfectly calibrated to the environmental needs of its occupant, the correct atmospheric mixture, gravity levels, temperature, and even the specific spectrum of artificial starlight that each species found most comfortable. Captain ZYX stood at the window of her quarters, looking out over the human city as it came to life in the early morning light. The coffee she'd requested, and which had been delivered within minutes of her asking, was helping her process the events of the previous day. Everything she'd seen challenged fundamental assumptions about human capabilities and their place in the galactic community. A gentle chime indicated someone was requesting entry. "Come," she called, and Admiral Chen entered carrying what appeared to be a portable briefing station.
Good morning, Captain. I hope you slept well.
I brought some updates on your ship's progress, and I thought you might like to see what we've been working on. The briefing station projected a three-dimensional hologram of the Stellar Wanderer as Admiral Chan activated it. The image showed the ship in extraordinary detail, with different systems highlighted in various colors to indicate their current status. Chief Santos and her team worked through the night, Admiral Chen explained. Your quantum drive has been completely rebuilt with our new efficiency improvements. Your life support systems have been upgraded with redundant backups that should prevent any future failures. And we've added some defensive improvements that I think you'll find interesting. The holographic ship rotated slowly, revealing modifications that made ZYX Thera's crystalline skin shift to a worried yellow. Admiral, these additions, they appear to be military enhancements. Defensive only, Admiral Chen assured her. Energy shields that can deflect most standard weapons, improved sensor arrays that can detect threats at much greater distances, and some countermeasure systems that will help you avoid conflicts rather than engage in them. But we didn't request military upgrades. The Confederation has strict protocols about weapon systems on civilian vessels. Admiral Chen's expression became more serious. Captain, there are some things happening in this part of the galaxy that you should be aware of. Your maintenance request wasn't the only distress signal we've intercepted recently. There have been several incidents involving ships that have gone missing or been found destroyed under mysterious circumstances. The holographic display changed to show a star map with several locations marked in red. Over the past 6 months, we've documented 17 separate incidents. Ships from various Confederation species, all reporting technical difficulties before losing contact. The official reports classify them as navigation errors or equipment failures, but our analysis suggests something else. What kind of something else? Predation, Admiral Chen said simply. Someone or something is targeting ships that appear vulnerable. The pattern suggests they're looking for easy prey, vessels with outdated weapons, limited defensive capabilities, or compromised systems. ZYX Thera studied the star map with growing concern. Several of the marked locations were along common trade routes that Valkyrie ships used regularly. Have you shared this information with the Confederation Council? We've tried. Unfortunately, our official status as a developing world means our intelligence reports are often dismissed as speculation or misunderstanding. The Confederation tends to trust their own sources over information from species they consider technologically inferior. The irony wasn't lost on ZYX Thera. Earth was being ignored precisely because the Confederation underestimated human capabilities, the same mistake she'd been making until yesterday. Admiral, why are you telling me this? Because the Valkyrie have a reputation for integrity and systematic thinking. If you were to review this information and reach your own conclusions, those conclusions might carry more weight with the Confederation Council than our direct reports. Before ZYX Thera could respond, another chime announced the arrival of Chief Engineer Santos, who entered carrying a datapad and wearing an expression of barely contained excitement. Captain, Admiral, sorry to interrupt, but we've got some interesting developments with the ship's upgrades. Problems? Admiral Chen asked. Quite the opposite. The quantum drive modifications are exceeding our projected performance improvements. Instead of the 30% efficiency increase we promised, we're seeing closer to 60%. And the new power distribution system is so much more efficient that we're generating enough excess capacity to run systems that weren't even designed yet. Santos activated her datapad, which projected additional technical schematics into the briefing display. The really exciting part is that these improvements seem to be synergistic. Each upgrade is making the others work better than they should. It's like your ship wanted to be improved. ZYX Thera examined the technical data with growing amazement. The modifications weren't just improvements, they were transformative. Her ship was being rebuilt into something that would exceed the performance of most military vessels in the Confederation fleet. Chief Santos, what's the estimated completion time for these modifications? Well, that's where things get interesting. Originally, we said a week to 10 days. But the work is going so smoothly that we might be done in 3 or 4 days. Unless. She paused, looking between the captain and the admiral. Unless what? Unless you'd like us to implement some of the more advanced modifications we've been developing. Things that would take your ship beyond anything currently in Confederation service. Admiral Chan leaned forward with interest. What kind of advanced modifications?
Santos's enthusiasm became infectious as she began explaining.
Well, we've developed some new propulsion concepts that would give you faster than light speeds about 10 times greater than standard drives. We've got defensive systems that can make a ship effectively invisible to most sensors. And we've been working on some offensive capabilities that are, well, let's just say they're very effective.
Offensive capabilities?
ZYXthera felt her skin shifting toward purple again.
Chief Santos, the Stellar Wanderer is a research vessel. We don't require weapons systems.
With respect, Captain, Admiral Chen interjected, given the current situation with missing ships, you might want to reconsider.
The galaxy is becoming a more dangerous place. Santos nodded in agreement. The modifications would be completely modular. You could activate or deactivate any system as needed. Think of it as insurance. You hope you never need it, but you'll be grateful to have it if circumstances change. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Blektar, who entered with his forearms gesturing in patterns that indicated extreme agitation. Captain, I apologize for the interruption, but there's something you need to see immediately. He activated his own portable display, which showed a communication transcript that had been intercepted by the ship's passive monitoring systems. This transmission was sent from a vessel approximately 2 light-years from our current position. It's a distress call from a Confederation science ship, the Quantum Explorer. The transcript was brief and chilling: unknown vessels attacking. Weapons far beyond expected capabilities. Hull breaches on multiple decks.
Attempting to transmit research data before the message ended abruptly.
When was this transmitted? Admiral Chen asked.
Approximately 6 hours ago, Blektar replied. The ship was on a routine survey mission in the Kepler sector. According to their filed flight plan, they should have been alone in that region of space. Admiral Chen and Chief Santos exchanged meaningful looks. Captain, Admiral Chen said, this changes things significantly.
The Quantum Explorer was attacked less than 2 days' travel from here. You think this is connected to the pattern of missing ships?
Almost certainly. The Quantum Explorer was a science vessel with minimal defensive capabilities, exactly the kind of target the attackers seem to prefer. He paused, considering options.
Captain, I need to make a recommendation that you're not going to like. Go ahead. Don't return to Confederation space alone.
The Stellar Wanderer is exactly the kind of vessel that's been targeted, a single ship with valuable technology, operating in areas with limited patrol coverage.
Santos stepped forward.
Captain, with the advanced modifications we're proposing, your ship would be capable of defending itself against anything in known space. More importantly, it would be capable of helping other ships that come under attack.
ZYXthera felt the weight of decision bearing down on her.
The safe choice was to accept basic repairs, return to Confederation space, and report what she'd learned through official channels. But the safe choice might also mean ignoring a threat that was actively hunting Confederation vessels.
Admiral, what exactly are you proposing?
A partnership. Your ship, with our modifications, could patrol the trade routes where attacks have been occurring. You'd be serving as both bait and defender, attractive enough to draw the attackers, but powerful enough to deal with them when they appear.
You're asking me to turn a science vessel into a warship. I'm asking you to turn a potential victim into a protector, Admiral Chen corrected. The galaxy needs someone willing to stand between predators and their prey.
The conversation was interrupted by a priority communication alert. Navigator Quintel's voice came through the room's communication system with obvious urgency.
Captain, we're receiving a live transmission from the Quantum Explorer.
They're still under attack. The main display immediately shifted to show a chaotic scene from the bridge of the Confederation science vessel. The view screen showed a human captain, her uniform torn and her face streaked with what appeared to be blood, shouting orders to her crew while explosions flashed in the background.
Hull breach on Deck 7.
Emergency teams to the transmission cut to static, then cleared again. Unknown vessel designs, weapons that drain our shields faster than they can regenerate.
We've sent our research data to the nearest. Another burst of static. Can we help them? ZYXthera asked immediately. Admiral Chen was already working controls on his portable unit.
Their position is approximately 38 hours away at best possible speed with a standard drive. With your current modifications,
Chief Santos?
Santos was calculating rapidly.
With the new quantum drive? Maybe 16 hours. With the experimental systems we've been discussing? We could be there in 8 hours or less. Captain, the voice from the Quantum Explorer came through clearly for a moment. If anyone receives this transmission, please warn the Confederation. These attackers are using technology that the signal died completely. The room fell silent except for the soft humming of the various electronic systems. ZYX looked around at the humans who had, in less than 2 days, transformed from primitive aliens into the most technologically capable beings she'd ever encountered. Chief Santos, she said finally, how quickly can you implement the advanced modifications? If we work continuously? 12 hours for the essential systems. 18 hours for the full package. Admiral Chen, if we do this, what kind of support can Earth provide? Whatever you need. Communications, intelligence, backup forces if necessary. We've got ships that can be at your position within hours if you run into trouble you can't handle. ZYX made her decision with the kind of calculated risk assessment that had made her a captain, combined with the moral certainty that had made her a good one. Do it. All of it. Make my ship capable of protecting others. Santos's excitement became almost visible as she began issuing orders through her communication device. I'll need Chief Martinez from the Advanced Systems Lab, the entire power distribution team from Project Excelsior, and someone from the Temporal Mechanics Division for the new drive systems. Temporal mechanics? Blektar asked. The faster-than-light improvements require some creative applications of time manipulation, Santos explained casually. Nothing dangerous, we're just borrowing a few hours from normal spacetime to compress your travel duration. As the humans began coordinating their enhancement efforts with the efficiency of a species that had turned impossibility into a hobby, Admiral Chen pulled ZYX aside for a private conversation. Captain, there's something else you should know. The partnership I'm proposing isn't just about dealing with these attacks. We've been monitoring galactic politics, and there are some concerning trends developing. What kind of trends? Resource disputes between major powers, territorial expansion conflicts, and some indications that certain species are developing weapons that could upset the current balance of power. The galaxy is moving toward a period of instability that could last decades or centuries. ZYX studied Admiral Chen's face, reading the concern and determination there. And, you believe Earth should play a role in managing this instability? I believe Earth should be prepared to protect the species and civilizations that share our values. The universe is big enough for everyone, but only if everyone agrees to play by reasonable rules. And if they don't agree? Admiral Chen's expression hardened slightly. Then, they need to be reminded that the universe contains consequences for unreasonable behavior. As if summoned by their conversation, Chief Santos returned with an update. Captain, we've got teams working on every system of your ship. The modifications will be completed ahead of schedule. But, there's something else. We've been monitoring the region where the Quantum Explorer was attacked, and we're detecting some unusual energy signatures. What kind of signatures? Ships. Lots of ships. Moving in formation toward the inner systems of the Confederation. It looks like whoever attacked the Quantum Explorer is planning something bigger. Admiral Chen and ZYX exchanged looks of understanding. Whatever was happening in their part of the galaxy, it was escalating rapidly. The choice was no longer between involvement and neutrality, it was between being prepared for trouble or being surprised by it. Chief Santos, ZYX said, I want those modifications completed as quickly as possible. And, Admiral Chen? Yes, Captain? I think it's time Earth stopped hiding its capabilities from the galaxy. Admiral Chen's smile was both reassuring and slightly predatory. Captain, I was hoping you'd say that. The transformation of the Stellar Wanderer proceeded with an efficiency that bordered on the supernatural. Captain ZYX watched from the observation deck as human work crews swarmed over her vessel like a colony of highly organized insects, each team performing precise modifications that should have required weeks of careful planning. The temporal compression fields are working perfectly, Chief Engineer Santos reported, her voice crackling with excitement over the communication system. We're essentially borrowing time from the future to complete the work faster. Your ship's quantum drive is being rebuilt with technology that won't be officially invented for another 6 months. The statement was so casually delivered that it took a moment for its implications to sink in. Blektar, who was standing beside ZYX monitoring the progress, turned with all 4 arms gesturing in patterns that indicated complete bewilderment. Did she just say they're using technology from the future? He asked.
That appears to be exactly what she said, ZYX replied, watching as sections of her ship's hull were being replaced with materials that seemed to shift and flow like living metal.
Blektar, I want you to record everything we observe here. Every detail.
The Confederation Council needs to know what Earth is truly capable of.
Captain, will they believe us? It was a valid question.
The evidence of human capabilities was so far beyond accepted galactic norms that their reports might be dismissed as elaborate fiction. The beings they'd thought were primitive Deathworlders were casually manipulating time, space, and matter in ways that most species considered theoretically impossible.
Admiral Chen approached from behind, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing an expression of professional satisfaction.
Captain, Chief Santos tells me the modifications are ahead of schedule. Your ship should be ready in approximately 4 hours.
Admiral, I must ask directly, how long has Earth possessed these advanced capabilities?
Define advanced, Admiral Chan replied with a slight smile. We've been developing beyond standard galactic technology for about 20 years. The really sophisticated stuff, temporal mechanics, dimensional engineering, consciousness transfer systems, that's been operational for maybe 5 years.
Consciousness transfer?
Emergency backup systems for ship crews. If something catastrophic happens, we can preserve and relocate the awareness of any crew member to a new physical form. It's still experimental, but the early results are promising.
ZYX stared at the human in growing amazement.
Consciousness transfer was a theoretical concept that most galactic civilizations considered impossible. The philosophical, technical, and ethical implications were staggering.
Admiral, why hasn't Earth shared these technologies with the Confederation? Admiral Chen's expression became more serious. Because the Confederation isn't ready for them.
Most galactic civilizations are still struggling with basic concepts like cooperation between species and peaceful resource sharing.
Giving them access to technology that could reshape reality itself would be problematic. So you've been operating in secret. We've been operating carefully. There's a difference between secrecy and discretion.
We share what we can when we can, but we're not about to hand universe-altering technology to species that are still fighting wars over territorial disputes. The conversation was interrupted by Navigator Quintel, who approached with a datapad and an expression of barely contained excitement.
Captain, I've been analyzing the technical specifications of our modifications. These improvements, they don't just exceed Confederation standards. They exceed theoretical maximums. Explain. Quintel activated her datapad, which projected technical diagrams into the air between them.
The new quantum drive should allow faster-than-light travel at approximately 15 times the speed of our previous maximum. The defensive systems can generate energy shields that are stronger than the hull plating on most battleships.
And the sensor arrays.
She paused, checking her calculations.
Captain, the sensor arrays can detect objects across dimensional barriers. Dimensional barriers? Admiral Chen nodded casually.
Useful for detecting ships that are hiding in parallel space or using cloaking technology that bends light around interdimensional fields.
Most attackers don't expect their targets to be able to see through dimensional camouflage. The implications hit ZYX like a physical blow.
Earth hadn't just advanced beyond Confederation technology, they had advanced beyond the apparent laws of physics that governed the known universe. The question was no longer what humans were capable of, but whether there was anything they couldn't do.
Admiral, there's something I need to understand. If Earth possesses this level of technology, why maintain the pretense of being a developing world?
Because, Admiral Chen said, the galaxy isn't ready for the truth. Most species are still adapting to the idea of galactic civilization. If they discovered that one member species had advanced to the point where they could reshape reality at will, it would cause panic, wars, and probably the collapse of the Confederation itself. But, you're willing to share these capabilities with us. The Valkyrie have proven themselves to be rational, ethical, and focused on the greater good. You're not going to use advanced technology to conquer your neighbors or exploit resources selfishly. You're going to use it to protect others. Chief Santos's voice came through the communication system with an update that managed to be both routine and extraordinary.
Captain, we've completed the installation of your new weapons systems.
You now have access to plasma cannons that can disable most ships without destroying them, quantum torpedoes that can track targets through hyperspace, and something we call reality anchors that prevent hostile ships from using dimensional escape techniques.
Reality anchors? Blektar asked weakly.
They lock local spacetime into its current configuration, Admiral Chen explained. Prevents enemy ships from using wormholes, dimensional shifts, or temporal manipulation to escape combat. Very effective against opponents who rely on exotic escape methods. ZYX was beginning to understand that her simple maintenance request had evolved into something far more significant. Earth wasn't just upgrading her ship, they were inducting her into a level of galactic capability that existed completely outside official channels.
Admiral, what exactly are you asking me to become?
A guardian, Admiral Chen said simply. Someone with the capability to protect others and the moral foundation to use that capability wisely. The galaxy has plenty of powerful species that use their strength for conquest or exploitation. It needs more powerful species that use their strength for protection. Before ZYX could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. Emergency lights flashed, and human personnel began moving with the kind of coordinated urgency that indicated serious trouble. Admiral Chen to Command Center. Admiral Chen spoke into his personal communication device. What's our status? Sir, we're receiving multiple distress calls from the Proxima trade route. At least 6 ships under attack by unknown vessels. The attackers appear to be using the same tactics and technology observed in the Quantum Explorer incident.
Admiral Chen turned to ZYX with an expression that combined regret and determination.
Captain, it looks like your ship's first mission is starting earlier than expected.
How early?
The modifications are 70% complete, but your ship is already more capable than anything in standard Confederation service. If we launch now, we can reach the attack zone in approximately 3 hours. ZYX made her decision with the kind of moral clarity that had guided her entire career. Prepare my ship for immediate departure.
How long will it take my crew to familiarize themselves with the new systems?
That's the interesting part, Chief Santos interjected over the communication system. The new systems integrate with your existing interfaces through adaptive artificial intelligence. The ship will essentially teach your crew how to use the modifications as needed.
Adaptive artificial intelligence? Admiral Chen smiled with obvious pride.
One of our more successful innovations. Your ship's computer will now be capable of learning, problem-solving, and even creative thinking.
It will become a crew member rather than just a tool.
As they moved toward the departure bay, Admiral Chen continued explaining the implications of their partnership. Captain, once you leave here, the galaxy is going to notice that something has changed. Your ship's capabilities will be impossible to hide if you use them in combat.
And, when the Confederation demands explanations?
Tell them the truth. Tell them that Earth is more advanced than their databases indicate, and that we're willing to share our capabilities with species that demonstrate wisdom and ethical behavior.
The Stellar Wanderer looked dramatically different as they approached.
The hull gleamed with materials that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. New sensor arrays and weapon ports were integrated so seamlessly that they appeared to have always been part of the ship's design. Most remarkably, the entire vessel seemed somehow more elegant, as if the human modifications had awakened an aesthetic potential that had been dormant in the original design. Your ship is beautiful, Admiral Chen observed as they entered the main airlock.
Valkyrie engineering combined with human innovation creates something remarkable.
The bridge was a revelation. Every station had been upgraded with controls and displays that responded to the crew's thoughts as much as their physical inputs. The main viewscreen now provided information in ways that seemed to anticipate what the crew needed to know before they realized they needed to know it. Captain, Navigation Officer Quintel reported from her station, all systems are operational and responding perfectly. The new interface technology it's like the ship is thinking alongside us. All crew stations report ready for departure, Blektar added.
Captain, these modifications, we're no longer operating a research vessel. This is something entirely new.
ZYX settled into her command chair, which adjusted automatically to her specific physiology and preferences. The ship's systems seemed to welcome her, displaying readouts and options that felt intuitive rather than technical. Admiral Chen, she said, thank you for your hospitality and for these extraordinary improvements.
We won't forget Earth's generosity.
Captain, Admiral Chen replied from the bridge's main communication screen, this isn't generosity.
This is partnership.
You're representing something new in the galaxy, a combination of Valkyrie wisdom and human innovation dedicated to protecting others.
Use these capabilities well. As the Stellar Wanderer departed Earth's orbital facility, The crew watched in amazement as human warships fell into formation around them. Sleek, powerful vessels that had been hidden from galactic knowledge were now openly escorting them toward whatever danger awaited in the Proxima trade route. Captain, Communications Officer Trelvanna reported, "I'm receiving tactical data from the human fleet.
They're sharing real-time intelligence about the attacks, including detailed analysis of the attackers' capabilities and probable weaknesses."
Put it on the main screen.
The tactical display showed a three-dimensional map of the attack zone, with red indicators showing the locations where Confederation ships were under assault. The attacking vessels were unlike anything in their databases, sleek, organic-looking ships that seemed to blend technology with biological components. Analysis suggests the attackers are using living ships, Admiral Chen's voice reported from the communication system. Biotechnology that adapts and evolves during combat. Standard weapons and tactics will be less effective than usual.
Recommendations? ZYX asked. Disable rather than destroy when possible. Living ships can surrender and negotiate. Dead ships can't provide information about who sent them or why.
As they approached the battle zone, ZYX realized that her simple maintenance stop had transformed into something far more significant. They weren't just rushing to help ships in distress, they were about to announce Earth's true capabilities to the galaxy, with all the consequences that would follow.
"All stations prepare for combat," she ordered. "Let's see what these human modifications can do."
The Proxima trade route had become a graveyard of disabled and burning ships by the time the Stellar Wanderer arrived.
Captain ZYX watched the tactical display in horror as organic-looking vessels swarmed around disabled Confederation craft like predators feeding on wounded prey.
Captain, Navigation Officer Quintel reported, her voice tight with shock, "I count at least 12 Confederation vessels under attack. The attackers appear to be harvesting technology and crew members."
Harvesting crew? Blektar's forearms gestured in patterns of dismay. What kind of species takes prisoners in space combat?
The question was answered when Communications Officer Trelvanna intercepted one of the attackers' transmissions. The voice that emerged from the speakers was distinctly artificial, but underneath the mechanical tones was something organic and hungry.
Biological diversity excellent. Neural patterns complex. These specimens will enhance the collective's understanding significantly. Continue collection protocols.
ZYX felt her crystalline skin shift to the deep blue-black that indicated rage among her people. Whatever these attackers were, they weren't engaging in normal piracy or territorial expansion.
They were collecting sentient beings like scientific specimens.
Communications, open a channel to the attacking vessels.
Full power broadcast. Channel open, Captain.
Unknown vessels, this is Captain ZYX of the Valkyrie ship Stellar Wanderer. You are attacking peaceful civilians in violation of all galactic conventions.
Cease your attacks immediately and release your prisoners. The response came quickly, delivered in the same artificially enhanced organic voice. Valkyrie physiology noted.
Neural complexity superior to previous samples.
Surrender immediately for collection. Resistance will result in specimen damage.
I'll take that as a refusal to negotiate, ZYX said grimly. All stations, prepare for combat.
Let's test these human modifications.
The ship's new systems responded to her commands with an efficiency that felt almost supernatural.
Targeting computers locked onto the alien vessels with precision that exceeded anything she'd experienced before.
Weapons systems charged with power levels that should have required massive energy reactors. Most remarkably, the ship's artificial intelligence began providing tactical suggestions that demonstrated genuine strategic thinking. "Captain," the ship's computer announced in a voice that sounded remarkably human, "analysis of enemy vessels suggests they are biomechanical hybrids."
Recommendation: use quantum torpedoes set to disrupt bioneural networks. This should disable rather than destroy. Since when does our computer make tactical recommendations? Blektar asked in amazement. Since the humans gave it the ability to think creatively, ZYX replied. Computer, implement your recommendations. Fire when ready.
The quantum torpedoes that launched from the Stellar Wanderer were unlike anything the crew had ever seen. Instead of explosive warheads, they carried payloads of pure quantum energy that seemed to phase in and out of normal space as they approached their targets. When they struck the organic vessels, the effect was immediate and dramatic. The alien ships simply stopped moving. Their biomechanical hulls went dark, their weapons ceased firing, and they began drifting like sleeping creatures in space.
Direct hits on 3 enemy vessels, Trelvanna reported.
They appear to be completely disabled but structurally intact.
Excellent. Target the remaining attackers. Same protocol.
But the alien vessels had learned from the first attack. They began moving in patterns that seemed to defy conventional physics, their organic hulls flowing and shifting to present different profiles to the Stellar Wanderer's weapons.
Captain, the ship's computer announced, enemies are adapting to our attack patterns. Recommendation: activate reality anchors to prevent dimensional evasion, then use plasma cannons to disable their propulsion systems. Reality anchors active, Quintel reported from her station.
The enemy ships are locked into normal spacetime. The effect was immediately visible. The alien vessels suddenly found themselves unable to phase between dimensions or use their exotic evasion techniques. They were trapped in normal space, vulnerable to conventional weapons.
The plasma cannons that fired from the Stellar Wanderer were nothing like conventional energy weapons.
Instead of simple destructive beams, they fired streams of controlled plasma that seemed to seek out specific systems on the enemy ships. The alien vessels found their propulsion systems, weapons, and communication arrays disabled with surgical precision.
All enemy vessels neutralized, Blektar reported.
Captain, the human modifications are extraordinary. We just defeated a fleet of advanced ships without destroying a single one. Now comes the interesting part, ZYXthera said.
Trelvanna, open channels to the disabled Confederation ships. Let them know help has arrived. The responses came quickly, and they were illuminating.
The crews of the attacked ships had been preparing for capture or death when the organic vessels suddenly went dark. They had no idea what had happened or who had rescued them. Stellar Wanderer came the voice of Captain Rebecca Martinez from the Confederation merchant vessel Tradewind. This is Captain Martinez.
We don't show any other Confederation vessels in the area. Who are you and how did you defeat those ships so easily? ZYXthera realized she was about to make galactic history. Captain Martinez, this is Captain ZYXthera of the Valkyrie Research Service. We've received some technological assistance from our friends on Earth.
Earth? Captain Martinez's voice carried obvious confusion.
The developing world? Captain, I don't understand.
Those attackers were using technology far beyond anything Earth should possess. Captain Martinez, I think it's time the galaxy learned that Earth is far more advanced than anyone realized. Over the next several hours, as rescue operations proceeded and the disabled alien vessels were secured for investigation, word of the battle began spreading through galactic communication networks. The story was almost too remarkable to believe. A single Valkyrie research ship had defeated an entire fleet of unknown attackers using technology that exceeded all known capabilities. Admiral Chen's voice came through the communication system as the Stellar Wanderer began coordinating with arriving Confederation rescue vessels.
Captain ZYXthera, Admiral Chen here. Congratulations on your first successful mission with the enhanced systems. Admiral, the technology performed beyond all expectations.
But I suspect we've created a diplomatic situation that will require careful handling.
Indeed. Captain, you're about to receive some very interesting visitors.
The Confederation Council is sending an emergency investigative committee to determine what happened here. They're particularly interested in learning about Earth's role in recent events. Within 6 hours, the battle site had become the center of a major galactic incident. Confederation ships arrived from multiple sectors, carrying diplomats, investigators, and military observers who wanted to understand how a single research vessel had achieved what should have been impossible.
The interrogation of the captured alien crews revealed information that sent shock waves through the galactic community.
The attackers called themselves the Collective, a civilization that had been watching Confederation space for decades. They viewed other species as resources to be harvested and integrated into their biomechanical society. Most disturbing of all, the Collective had been systematically studying Confederation defenses and technology, preparing for a large-scale invasion that would have overwhelmed all known military forces. Only the unexpected appearance of technology far beyond their calculations had disrupted their plans. Captain ZYXthera, Confederation Council President Veltar communicated from the council chambers on the galactic capital world, your actions have prevented what could have been a catastrophic invasion. However, we need to understand how you came to possess technology that exceeds our most advanced military systems. ZYXDara stood on her bridge, surrounded by the impossible technology that Earth had gifted her, and made a decision that would reshape galactic politics. Council President, Earth has been developing advanced technology in secret for several years. They have capabilities that exceed anything in known space, including faster-than-light travel, dimensional manipulation, and what they call reality engineering. The silence that followed lasted nearly a minute. When the council president spoke again, his voice carried a mixture of amazement and concern. Captain, are you telling us that the species we classified as primitive Deathworlders possess technology that could dominate the entire galaxy? Yes, sir. But, more importantly, I'm telling you that they've chosen to use that technology to protect others rather than dominate them. Earth could have conquered the galaxy decades ago. Instead, they've been quietly working to defend it. Admiral Chen's image appeared on the bridge's communication screen, his expression serious but determined.
Council President Veltar, this is Admiral Marcus Chen of Earth's Defense Command. Captain ZYXDara is correct about our capabilities. We've been operating discreetly because we wanted to ensure that our technology would be used responsibly. Admiral Chen, the Confederation needs to understand the full extent of Earth's capabilities.
Understood, Council President. We're prepared to share that information, along with an offer of alliance and technological cooperation. The galaxy is becoming a more dangerous place, and it needs all the protection it can get. Over the following weeks, as Earth's true capabilities were gradually revealed to the galactic community, the political landscape began shifting in fundamental ways. Some species were frightened by the revelation that humans possessed reality-altering technology. Others were amazed by humanity's restraint in using their capabilities only for defensive purposes. The Confederation itself underwent dramatic changes. Earth became not just a member world but a technological partner whose innovations transformed everything from space travel to interspecies communication. The human-designed upgrades were offered to any species that demonstrated peaceful intentions and ethical behavior. Captain ZYXDara found herself at the center of these changes, serving as liaison between Earth and the Confederation. Her ship, the Stellar Wanderer, became a symbol of what was possible when human innovation combined with the wisdom and ethics of other species. Captain, Admiral Chen said during one of their regular meetings, you realize that your simple maintenance request has changed the course of galactic history? ZYXDara smiled, a facial expression she'd learned from humans. Admiral, I think it's more accurate to say that humanity's generosity changed galactic history. We just happened to be the catalyst. And, now? Now we work together to make sure the galaxy becomes the kind of place where all species can thrive. The collective won't be the last threat we face, but, with Earth's technology and the Confederation's combined resources, we'll be ready for whatever comes next. Through the viewport of her enhanced ship, ZYXDara could see Earth in the distance, no longer a mysterious death world but a beacon of innovation and hope. The simple maintenance stop had indeed led to upgrades, coffee, and an entire battle fleet, but, more importantly, it had led to the kind of partnership that would protect the galaxy for generations to come. The Stellar Wanderer had left Earth as a research vessel in need of repairs. It had returned as something unprecedented, a symbol of cooperation between species, equipped with technology that made the impossible routine and staffed by crews who had learned that the universe held wonders beyond imagination. And, in the coffee maker that had been installed in the ship's mess hall, Earth's greatest diplomatic achievement continued brewing, one perfect cup at a time.